In a hidden corner of the world, nestled among whispering willows and sparkling streams, lay the enchanted realm of Ethelgerd. This was the home of fairies, a kingdom shimmering with magic and light. Ruling over this land was Princess Aurelia, a fairy whose beauty was said to rival the dawn itself. Her wings were like spun moonlight, her laughter like the chime of silver bells, and her heart, well, her heart was filled with a longing she couldn't quite name. Aurelia had everything a princess could ever desire. Gowns woven from flower petals, jewels made of morning dew, and a crown crafted from the purest starlight. Yet, as she sat on her throne of polished riverstones, she felt a peculiar emptiness. The duties of a princess were endless, attending royal balls, settling disputes between grumpy gnomes and mischievous pixies, and ensuring the seasonal spells were cast on time. It was an important life, a life of purpose, but it wasn't the life her soul yearned for. Her greatest joy was found not in the grand halls of the palace, but in the quiet solitude of the royal library. It was an ancient, sprawling place, with shelves that reached up to the ceiling, carved from the heartwood of ancient oaks. The air smelled of old paper, dried ink, and a hint of forgotten magic. Here, Aurelia would lose herself for hours, her fingers tracing the words in books bound with leather and gold. She read tales of worlds beyond Ethelgerd. Worlds without magic, but filled with a different kind of wonder. She read about humans with their fleeting, passionate lives, their strange metal carriages, their towering cities of glass and stone, and their incredible inventions. She learned about things called science, art, and history. Each page she turned fanned the flames of a growing desire to see this world for herself. One day, while exploring a dusty, forgotten corner of the library, she found a book unlike any other. It wasn't elegant or ornate. Its cover was plain, and its pages were filled with strange diagrams and what looked like human handwriting. It was the journal of a fairy who had lived centuries ago, a fairy who had successfully crossed the veil between their world and the human world. Aurelia's heart pounded in her chest. The journal was a guide, a map. It spoke of a difficult, irreversible ritual. To enter the human world, a fairy had to surrender their magic, their wings, and their immortality. They had to give up their very essence, becoming fully human, bound by time and mortality. It was a one-way journey, there was no coming back. The thought was terrifying, to leave behind everyone she loved, everything she knew. To give up the feeling of the wind beneath her wings, the taste of nectar on her tongue, the soft glow of her own innate magic. But the alternative, a long, predictable life on a throne that felt more like a cage, was even more frightening. The human world, with all its chaos, its challenges, and its finite, precious moments, called to her. For weeks, Aurelia wrestled with her decision. She watched her father, the king, rule with a heavy but loving hand. She saw the joy and stability her family brought to the kingdom. A part of her was racked with guilt. Was it selfish to abandon her duty, her birthright, for a personal dream? She sought the counsel of Elara, the oldest and wisest fairy in the court, whose wings were as delicate and transparent as dragonfly wings in autumn. Elara listened patiently, her ancient eyes full of understanding. She didn't try to dissuade Aurelia. Instead, she said, "A crown is a heavy burden, my dear. But a heart full of unfulfilled dreams is heavier still. True royalty lies not in a title, but in the courage to be true to oneself." Elara's words were the final push Aurelia needed. That night, under the light of a triple moon, she made her choice. She wrote a long, heartfelt letter to her family, explaining her decision and assuring them of her love. She expressed her hope that her younger sister Lyra, who loved the court and its duties, would be a wonderful queen in her stead. Then, with the old journal clutched in her hand, she slipped out of the palace and made her way to the ancient stone circle at the edge of the kingdom, the place the ritual had to be performed. The air crackled with raw, untamed magic. As she stood in the center of the circle, she took one last look at the shimmering landscape of her home. She took a deep breath and began the incantation from the journal. The words felt strange on her tongue, ancient and powerful. As she spoke, a gentle light began to envelop her. She felt a sharp, aching pain in her back as her beautiful, moonlit wings dissolved into a shower of glittering dust. The magic that had flowed through her veins for centuries receded, like a tide pulling away from the shore, leaving her feeling strangely light and incredibly vulnerable. She took off her starlight crown and placed it gently on the central stone, a final farewell to her old life. The light intensified, blinding her for a moment, and when it faded, she was no longer in Ethelgerd. Aurelia found herself in an alleyway, the air thick with unfamiliar smells, exhaust fumes, rain-soaked pavement, and roasting food. The sounds were a chaotic symphony of car horns, distant sirens, and the murmur of 100 conversations. Above her, buildings of brick and glass scraped the sky, their windows glowing like a constellation of man-made stars. She was in a human city. She was no longer Princess Aurelia of the fairies. She was just Leah. She had nothing but the simple clothes on her back and the old journal, its magic now spent. Fear and excitement warred within her. It was overwhelming, terrifying, and more exhilarating than anything she had ever experienced. The first few years were difficult. She learned that without magic, survival required a different kind of strength, resilience. She worked odd jobs, washing dishes, shelving books in a small, cozy bookstore that reminded her of her library back home. She learned about money, about rent, about the simple, profound kindness of strangers and the sting of loneliness. She marveled at everything. The taste of pizza, the feeling of riding a bus, the beauty of a movie projected onto a giant screen. She enrolled in a community college, her thirst for knowledge insatiable. She studied history, literature, and astronomy, finding echoes of her old world's magic in the laws of physics and the poetry of human expression. Leah made friends. Friends who knew nothing of her past but loved her for who she was, a kind, intelligent woman with a curious spirit and an old soul wisdom in her eyes. She fell in love with a man who was a musician, who showed her how to find magic not in spells, but in the chords of a guitar and the lyrics of a song. Sometimes late at night she would look up at the moon and feel a pang of homesickness. She missed her family, the feeling of flight, the shimmering beauty of Ethelgerd. But she never regretted her choice. She had traded a crown for a life of her own making. She had traded immortality for the precious, fleeting beauty of a human lifetime. She had learned that you didn't need wings to soar, and you didn't need a crown to be a queen of your own destiny. She had given up her title as a fairy princess, but in the messy, wonderful, unpredictable human world, she had finally found her true kingdom. She was Leah, and she was home. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales of courage and transformation. See you next time.